handing over now to Nellie. So take it away, Nellie. And I know we've got lots of interactive things, so lots of opportunity for questions and responses as well today. But yeah, go for it, Nellie.
Thank you very much to all three of you for setting this up and for having me today. And thanks to everyone who's participating. It's really sunny in Edinburgh, so I appreciate anyone who's actually turned up here instead of having a nice sunny lunch outside. I'm a bit challenged with my screen setup, so if it kind of flickers in and out, I apologize for that. It's just because I might want to see some of you at some points. Yeah, I'll just get straight into it. So I am Media and AI Service Manager at the University of Edinburgh. So that means I look after our captioning service as well as other AI-related media bits of projects. So we provide closed captions on all our media that we produce at the university, and I'll talk about why captioning is important to us, what our processes are, the challenges we face, some of the solutions we've come up with and that we're still currently exploring to improve our captioning provision. And then I'll share some of our findings that I'm sure you'll be able to apply to your own practices if you're interested. They're fairly accessible solutions and ideas, and it's nothing too new. So that's just the order in which I'll run through things. So I've actually watched on YouTube some of the previous recordings for these sessions, and I've seen that you seem to enjoy film quizzes. So I've dressed accordingly with a scarf indoors. That's filmmaker behavior, I think. So I'd like to start with, if you know the game, 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon. But not Kevin Bacon this time. So the theory is that Kevin Bacon is such a prolific actor and he's in so many things that you can relate him to anybody else in Hollywood within 6 films or less. So let's play 6 Degrees of Separation, and the task is to link Jack Nicholson to Shrek through 6 or fewer movies. So that is the challenge for now. So I'll give you about a minute to try and come up with something. Let's see how well you do. You can probably post it in chat as well, or if you're, if you'd like to say it out loud, that would be great too. Is anyone feeling brave at all?
This is really hard.
It is, isn't it? So it's a challenge.
My brain is like going into meltdown here.
Yeah. I've actually given it quite some thought. So I think I know my movies. The problem is I'm really bad with names, and my memory is not great either. So what's the first thing one does nowadays? Obviously, run to GPT for help, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I did. And this is what it's come up with. So it told me that Jack Nicholson was in A Few Good Men with Demi Moore. Great movie.
I got that one.
Ooh. Great. Demi was in Ghost with Whoopi Goldberg, another good movie. Whoopi was in The Lion King from 1994 with James Earl Jones, who was then in the new Lion King from 2019 with John Lithgow, who was the one who voiced Lord Farquaad in Shrek. So I thought, that's quite clever. Now, I haven't actually seen The Lion King from 2019, so I looked it up, and guess what? John Lithgow was not in it. But Google, just plain Google, no AI intervention there, told me that John Lithgow was a fan favorite, and some fans proposed him to voice Mufasa. Mufasa was actually voiced by James Earl Jones. So that whole connection there just falls apart. That's not, that's a hallucination, basically. It's not an accurate answer. Even though it was less than 6 degrees, it was 5 degrees. So I thought, oh, that's a great answer. So I asked it again, and it managed to come up with 3 degrees. So Jack Nicholson was in The Departed with Leonardo DiCaprio, who was in Gangs of New York with Cameron Diaz, who voiced Princess Fiona. So I thought, that is a good one, actually. Did anybody else come up with anything? Was this too much of a challenge?
I got stuck. I got A Few Good Men, and it's like Demi Moore. Then I tried to go Demi Moore and The Substance and realized I don't know who else is in that, so I had to scrap that. And then so I thought Ghost for Demi Moore, and then I thought Patrick Swayze, and then I got stuck on Patrick Swayze, and I was like, what, who else has Patrick Swayze been in movies with that I know and that could link? So I got to that point. So yeah.
That's very good still.
Yeah.
And I think David is saying,
oh yeah,
Few Good Men as well with Tom Cruise, and then a connection through Night and Day. I haven't seen Night and Day.
I have. It's pretty good. Well, I liked it. But
I'll add that to my list.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is actually like a brain challenge. And, I find that oftentimes I do kind of just go to GPT or go to Google instead of challenging my own brain. But I can tell you about another fantastic cinematic production that these two have been in together, Shrek and Jack Nicholson. And that is one of our lectures at the University of Edinburgh, or at least according to the transcript. So Jack Nicholson, you still have to solve systems, but you get a local truncation error, which is preferable. And it's like Shrek minus table. Now, this is a maths lecture, and I don't really know that much maths, but that seemed a bit fishy to me. And this is something we deal with every day when we correct these captions. It's like, right, which one of these are actual terms and what is gibberish? And, was the lecturer talking about films? So fortunately, our team of fantastic captioners corrected it, and these are the correct words. It's Crank Nicholson, not Jack Nicholson, and that's a mathematician who is so brilliant, he gave his name to something. And then it is Lax-Richtmeier stable, so it's some sort of equation or stability that we need to reach. It's not minus table, and there's definitely no Shrek in there. So I think, yeah, this is an example of what we deal with, and it's quite easy to miss errors in subjects that we're unfamiliar with. And yeah, this is basically what we're trying to improve here. So why do we correct closed captions? So I'll start with a bit of context, and just with a disclaimer that all of these figures are very much approximate, is just to give you a bit of an idea of the scale of the institution. We're quite a large organization divided into 3 colleges, which have teachers, of course, and researchers and professional services staff who support them. And all of these categories of staff produce very diverse media content. So we started captioning our videos in 2019. And we use 2 media platforms. So the first one is for lecture recordings. So we automatically record lectures in our teaching spaces from around 2,500 courses. And a course could have 1 lecture per week, or it could have 4 lectures per week. So that is a large amount of media that gets recorded. And we also have a second platform where we upload around 4,000 other media monthly. Obviously, this varies throughout the semesters, but this platform is a bit of like a university's YouTube, where anything that isn't an automated lecture capture goes. So it could be a local desktop recording, it could be a tutorial, it could be some other kind of demonstration, a promo video, it could be stock video to be reused for marketing. Pretty much anything. And we're trying to be a leader in the provision of accessible content to benefit all of our audiences. So not just our current students, but our staff, like I mentioned, our prospective students, and the general public as well, because lots of our media is public facing. So we have just under 50,000 students if we count the online students, and many of them are foreign students or they have English as an additional language. And we have close to 90 students with schedules of adjustments for hearing, learning, or processing disabilities, and they require accurate closed captions or transcripts. And this is one of our values that goes beyond just compliance with the Equality Act 2010. So our teaching and research is relevant to society, and we are diverse, inclusive, and accessible to all. So this is a thread that goes through the institution, and all staff should be committed to providing this. So our commitment as the captioning service is to improving the accessibility of our media content in line with legislation, of course, but also to promote culture change and to enhance staff digital skills. So we share with other staff all our tips and tricks and guidance from our daily struggles with Shrek and the like. And we offer living wage employment opportunities to our students. We feel like this is an ethical approach to this. So how do we do closed captions? When we started, we used to just type in what we heard from the audio. Fortunately, well, today actually we take closed captions for granted because they've become ubiquitous, because they get automatically generated. But getting them right doesn't just involve the non-generative AI or the automatic speech recognition. It also involves the humans and generative AI intervention potentially. So our two media service platform suppliers use different ASR services. These produce these automatic transcripts, and then our captioners and other staff can use the browser-based transcript editors to correct this generated text. Our team of captioners is made up of about 20 students who work part-time. And they come, they're both undergraduates and postgraduates, and they come from all three colleges. So they really bring a wealth of knowledge, not just in the subjects that they're reading, but also from their own interests. And in return, they get some valuable work experience as well. So I'd like to know how your institution approaches transcripts, closed captions. Are they just simply there and you don't really think about them much? Are they kept off intentionally or just not used? Are browser add-ons encouraged or allowed? Do you have a paid service or a formal process or a team that handles this? Is there anything else that you find is helping with this that you're working with?
Nellie, can I just check? Are you talking here about recorded lectures or about lectures in classes?
Well, good, really good question. Both, why not?
Okay.
So basically anything that can benefit from captions, does it have them? Do you think about them? Do you, have any formal processes in place?
Okay. They're still adding to the poll. Can I just check you can see the poll?
Yeah, it popped up for me as well.
Okay, so I think I'll be able to share responses. Is everyone's voted there?
Yeah.
Okay, right, so I'll end it, and I want to share results. So should be able to see that on the screen now.
Okay. So about 61% say that they're automatically on. That's actually a lower number than I expected. I thought that they would just be on everywhere, but I guess not. But we do see that browser add-ons are allowed or encouraged. And some institutions do have a formal process or a paid service. And indeed, someone mentions that it's a hard thing to answer because there are different settings on different platforms. Browser add-ons allowed for students with their own devices. And some universities offer training or technology advisors. Okay. Browser add-ons would be something like Otter AI. Yes, I think perhaps even Grammarly offers some sort of transcription. This is really interesting to see your responses. Some lecturers use PowerPoint Live to provide captions. I've also seen Microsoft Word being used for live captioning with not great results in the instance that I witnessed it, but some other people are really happy with it. And some institutions provide workshops for staff. So this is great. So yeah, great responses. Thank you very much for that. So, we've done a lot of consultation quite extensively, and most people in our institution agree that somewhat accurate captions are better than no captions at all. So we have them automatically on everywhere. But for now, to cover every possibility, we're displaying warnings on both our media platforms. So captions may be available for this content for accessibility purposes, but they may not always be edited or fully accurate. And that's to warn the viewer that they might not be seeing an accurate representation of the speaker. And for the lecture recording platform, we also offer a QR and a link for students to easily access our captioning service in case they need to request caption correction. So we talked about automatic speech recognition and about our lovely humans, but what about generative AI? So we have a department at the university called ADINA, and they're specialists in developing and delivering digital products for education. So they provide us ELM or ELM, which stands for Edinburgh Access to Large Language Models. So this allows us access currently to the latest version of GPT, as well as some previous versions. This is very important because it provides a layer of security for us. So ELM operates under a zero data retention agreement with OpenAI. So our data are not retained or used by OpenAI for the purpose of training their models. And this is really important to us when we think of ongoing research, for example, that we don't want to let out into the world, but we still want to make it accessible. Or when we think of perhaps accidentally recording students' information during the lecture when they come and chat to the lecturer, we want to protect that. So by combining our digital tools and human knowledge, we're running now this project to improve the accuracy of our captions. I'll give you more details on the AI, but let's see some of the challenges we're up against. And I have a feeling our challenges are nothing new. I suspect you might share some. So I would like to hear from you. Is it the time it takes to correct the captions? Do you get complaints ever from viewers or from speakers? Is there a cost associated to the services you use? Are you tied to a supplier that perhaps isn't the best supplier out there? Do you have other challenges? Are you worried about viewers using their own transcription methods?
Okay, people are still voting. Just give another
Mm-hmm.
little moment.
So the challenge of miscaptioning sexy people in place of dyslexic people in a neurodiversity talk. That's one of the great ones for sure. I mean, they're not exclusive, of course.
Yeah.
It's actually been quite an accurate observation.
Okay. All right, I'm going to close the poll. Countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, I think we've got enough responses now to get a good sense.
Thank you very much, everyone. So number one, the time it takes to correct automatically generated transcripts. And we're very familiar with that as well. This is why we have 20 staff doing it. Some complaints from viewers and speakers. Okay. I think by now everybody's used to seeing bad captions or maybe being amused by them, but sometimes they can absolutely be an issue. And another large problem people seem to be facing is the cost of captioning services or staff. Okay, that's not unexpected, I have to say. So thank you very much for replying to that. And someone says in the chat as well, inequity of access. Very interesting. Okay, so moving on to more challenges. So yeah, we've identified that caption correction is very time consuming. It's less consuming, however, than just typing out the captions we hear. So, you know, it's gone down a whole lot with advancements in ASR. But because this takes such a long time, we have to provide our service on a priority basis. We simply cannot check everything by hand. So the priority is as follows. People with schedules of adjustments are the top priority. So especially for students, we strive to turn around their lectures, for example, in about 4 days or less. So if a student attends a lecture on a Monday, we can caption correct it so that they have time to review it for the next Monday for their next lecture. The second level of priority would be high profile events or public lectures. So we have our graduations or our prestigious lecture series, and we want to make our speakers and our guests, appear as accurately represented as possible. We don't want to put, nonsense gibberish in their mouths and make them appear incoherent or anything like that. Then the next level of priority is important internal communications. And then there's everything else, non-time sensitive teaching materials, promo materials, anything you can think of that comes in media form. And the accuracy of machine-generated captions is influenced by many factors. So we have sound quality, speech characteristics such as accent, not just the Scottish accent, but we have many international speakers, so diverse accents, hesitation, volume, content, so abbreviations that only make sense in our institution, and sometimes even then it's challenging, or scientific or technical jargon, names of people, names of places. Basically anything that doesn't fall into the common language bank that AI is really great at decoding. So another challenge is keeping up versus innovating. The university has been at the forefront and is one of the UK's oldest AI research centers, but we have to continually evaluate security and legislative compliance, to make sure that any new technologies that appear, we don't just jump on them without due diligence. We also need to negotiate with suppliers currently providing some of the services we rely on before we can implement changes. So it might be that one service provider works with a certain ASR provider and we can't really change that, or we only have a limited choice. So these are other challenges that we face. So that's everybody's favorite, I think, misheard captions. Just some recent examples of incorrect automatic transcripts. So like you've showed us in the chat, you know, they can be amusing, they can be confusing, they can be downright reputation damaging. They can be or appear rude. So I had some trepidation when I searched "to stick a dirty Richard" on my work laptop, but it's not anything rude. It was actually just an interaction between a doctor and a young patient who had behaved so well. The doctor offered him a sticker, and the patient's name was Richard. So we have these types of confusing instances. Then we have our classic Scottish we. We have an ophthalmologist who might be a palmologist. I'm not sure if that is the doctor of the palm or a palm reader. Another classic example that I'll touch upon later is stickman versus neostigmine. So, you know, it could be a rhetoric lecture, or it could be a biology lecture. You'll have to know what the topic is to figure out which word is correct. And the last word on the slide there, I wouldn't know the difference. But if I were studying medicine, for example, or chemistry, I would like some help in figuring out which is gibberish and which is an actual word that I need to memorize or understand the meaning of. And as with any technology, you know, there is space for user error. So the classic 42 minutes into a 50-minute lecture, the speaker realizes that their microphone was muted the entire time. Therefore, no audio was recorded and no transcript was produced. So that is unusable. So what solutions are we trying to find? We've had two brilliant interns, Zoe Brunner and Martina Emmerich, who worked on a project involving AI. They researched and tested two promising solutions for ASR error correction. So the first one is called contextual neural biasing. And recent research indicates that this could be a really viable solution, but it would require some in-depth testing, and it would require some robust setup and maintenance, which we weren't able to do fully. And the second solution is prompting large language models. And this has been proven to work even within our limited testing. It's worked really well within certain parameters. So we are looking at taking this further. So just touching on neural contextual biasing, it is a good solution if you are able to create the infrastructure. So the pros of this is that it can handle a big terminology list efficiently. It won't overcorrect the models, so the ASR's output. So there won't be any changes to sentence structure or stylistic changes. So basically there are no AI hallucinations. And it will be closer related to the original speech signal. So it relies on the acoustic information to make the final predictions. The cons, however, is that it needs a curated list of terms. And this is not an easy task. It is a massive endeavor to create curated lists of terms that apply to our institution or to our subjects that we're teaching. It needs extra setup and training. So it needs possibly servers or access to our supercomputers, an engineer to set it up and monitor it. So it's quite a lot of work in the background and to train this. So we've kind of set this to the side, but it's a different kind of AI. So it's not a large language model that hallucinates, and it takes a lot less computing power. So yeah, that was one option. And the option that we're going with at the moment is prompting LLMs. So that's the ELM chat interface on the slide there. So we've actually bypassed this interface and we get to GPT-4o through API keys, because this allows us to do a lot more volume of testing a lot quicker. And we can test different prompt settings. So we can give the LLM transcript segments, so little bits of sentences, and see if it figures out what the corrections are there. Or we can give it entire sentences, or we can increase that context window and allow it to remember, the previous 10 or 20 or 5 sentences, so it has a better idea what the context is. We can also feed a terminology list if we have one, but we found that with 4o, it's not necessary. With some of the previous iterations of GPT, it did actually help a bit. So the pros are, it doesn't need any training or other models. Sorry. So it doesn't require a lot of compute in-house. It just does its thing. It's also agnostic to the underlying ASR model, which is really important to us because we might change suppliers of ASR, if we find a better one. The cons are that it relies on the ASR text output, which might not yield the best correction. So the large language model only knows the text you give it, and if that text is quite incorrect, it will struggle a bit to understand what it's talking about. It might require a list of terminology, it might not. It might hallucinate, it might be hard to control. We know all of this, and it can overcorrect transcripts, which might result in stylistic or sentence structure changes. And it's also dependent on a good prompt. This seems like a large list of cons, but actually the last 3 are not as big of a deal as they appear. So that's just a graphic breakdown of the caption correction process there. So if we take that example sentence on the left in the blue box, what concentration of stickman do you want to add? This is a sentence from a lecture transcript. We feed this into the large language model, and it does 3 things. It identifies likely errors, and we see in red it's identified stickman. Then it finds a match in its vast knowledge database. So it finds words that are similar and potentially better suited to the context. The third step is to replace the identified error with the new word, and then it outputs the corrected transcript. What concentration of neostigmine do you want to add? So this is the correct lecture in the correct word in the context of this lecture. And this is kind of how the back end of it looks. This is an example of a prompt that we used through the API key. So we can ask it to receive or output any format we want. There's JSON in this format in this example, but you can give it an SRT or a simple text file, and it outputs the same if you ask it to. So let's look at some examples. So we tried first to be economical and only gave the LLM segments of sentences to save on tokens, because tokens cost money and they're not free. So we took this example from an ophthalmology lecture, and the lecturer mentioned this affliction of both eyes, amblyopia. The ASR really struggled. It did not know this word. So every time it heard this amblyopia, it transcribed it as something that isn't a word. Amblyopia, ambopia, ambloa, amblyopia again. So it wasn't even consistent with this. Because we only give it short segments of sentences, the LLM doesn't have enough context to know what this should be, even though here in the second example, it does mention vision in one eye, so maybe it could pick up something from there. But we saw that the LLM could not correct any of these. So it doesn't perform that well with segments. However, full sentences are sufficient context. So these are the same sentences, but the full sentences this time. So we see that there's more context. We have visual acuity, visual loss in the eye. We have visual loss, poor vision. So all of these, the LLM can hang on to and find the context, find that this is about ophthalmology, and it can successfully make the corrections in every single instance of this word. So other examples of good correction. This is a different lecture. So the ASR output came up with, here we find sung et al. And they ... So the human identified that this probably was an error and they corrected it to sung et al. However, the human made a mistake here, possibly in Googling, they found a more popular author with a similar name, possibly in the same field, or it could have just been a typo. However, when we tested the LLM, it made the correction and filled in the correct author's name et al. So this is an instance where the LLM outperformed the human, not by much. And we have seen a few instances of these, but yeah, it's just to prove that point. And we go back to our maths Shrek lecture. So like with amblyopia, the ASR really struggled. It didn't know what Lax-Richtmeier stability was, and it came up with electric, like shrink, like my, lack my, Shrek minus. And the LLM corrected it sometimes, depending on how it was transcribed, because the LLM is only given the words from the transcript, it can sometimes make guesses. So like shrink, it identified as being Lax-Richtmeier. I believe Shrek minus was also correctly identified, but things like electric just baffled it, just like it baffles me. Here are some more examples, which I won't go into, apart from the last one, which shows an overcorrection. So the ASR model transcription was correct. A bit more fun, which will hopefully keep the child engaged in it for longer. This is just a sentence that was spoken. And the LLM overcorrected it to a bit more fun, which will hopefully keep children engaged for longer. Perhaps still stylistically, this is a better choice. It didn't need to do that correction, though. There was no error there, but it just felt the need to overcorrect. And sometimes our humans do this as well. So this is perhaps an error that we can forgive the LLM. It's not a huge one, and it doesn't alter the meaning, which is the most important thing for our transcription accuracy. So I would like to know from you which AI tools for improving accessibility you have access to. Is it something that you have access to through your institution? Is it provided, or are some of them encouraged, and are they free? And this could be anything for summarization, transcription, translation, for simplifying language, anything you can come up with.
So we'll see how this goes, because this is, we're using the poll to capture short answers. You can't see them come in. So I hope when we end it, we can see what the answers are, and they're not just like lost forever. There's also the option to use the chat as well.
Yeah, I see
it's a whole new world.
I see a very good point from Mike in the chat that most modern ASRs do use an LLM already. And yeah, that's absolutely true. That's why we've seen such a huge increase in the past couple of years. However, the LLMs that the ASR models use, or the ASR models we use, aren't as vast or as knowledgeable as GPT-4o is the point there. So they're also cheaper than running the whole thing through GPT or through Whisper AI. So those were kind of the considerations there. We wouldn't use it every time, but I think we'd use it as an additional tool for a first draft correction before a human looks over it, perhaps.
Yes. Oh, nice bit of comparison from Roz there. That would be interesting to see. It's one of these things that does, you know, you need to, it takes quite a bit of organization, but that's very interesting. Doing the same content with different suppliers.
Yeah, so we do that constantly because we have 2 suppliers and we tested a 3rd one now. So we do like to keep on top of things, and it's a task. So if you just do word error rate comparison, it's not the most accurate. So you need to kind of look over everything with human eyes. So you need to look at the same transcript a number of times and decide which one has the most accurate meaning.
Okay, I'm going to try ending this poll and hoping we can see the responses. Poll. View details. Okay. Oh, right. It's taking me out to another page with responses in it. So I mean, we can share these afterwards.
Yeah.
I can sort of shout some out. Microsoft Copilot and MS Teams, Copilot, Otter AI, Copilot Chat, more Otter AI as well. ChatGPT, Copilot, Grammarly, more Copilot, Copilot Whisper, another ELM user from Edinburgh. Yeah, more Grammarly. So actually quite a few names and another Copilot. So Copilot, Grammarly, Otter seem to be the ones that were popping up there.
And we see the same kind of names pop up. So even though there are so many tools, people kind of find which ones they prefer or which ones work best in their areas. And this is very interesting. And we've seen massive differences from previous versions of GPT to GPT 4.0 when we tried correcting or using it. So there will be differences between these systems as well, these AIs. So yeah, many different LLM providers, but the technique that we use to correct these transcripts can be replicated on any of them. Through just their user interfaces. You don't need to go through the API keys or anything. If you want to do a bit of testing, you might need to slightly modify the prompt that we showed you a bit earlier, and the quality may vary. We haven't actually tested Gemini or Meta or Claude with this. We'd like to, but we haven't had the time yet. So if you're interested in testing out and you have the time to test out, feel free to use our prompt or an adapted version of it, adapted to your needs. And I'd be really interested to see which performs better in which area, in which field, in which lexicon, basically. So yeah, that's just the prompt again there. Now, I'm afraid, Kelly, I have another poll.
It's okay. That's okay. Oh, it's fine. Keep you on my toes.
Just in a second.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
So looking towards the future, what's next? So for us, we want to make sure, of course, that we represent as many areas of the university as we can, whether it's mathematics or architecture or engineering or indeed ophthalmology. We want to include all of these different technical terms, but we also want to show our local and international accents so that all of our voices are represented accurately. And we have seen that speech to text has improved massively in the last few years. You've identified that as well in your testing. So this will probably mean that human correction will take much less time and it should reduce over time. That doesn't mean we're going to fire any of our lovely interns. It just means that they will be able to look through a lot more transcripts and improve accuracy on a lot more of our media content. And we'd like to explore media summarization, so little highlight reels maybe, or trailers for long form videos, or automatic description text, that gets filled in to describe what the video is about, chaptering, and other such features, which are nothing new, but all of them rely on accurate transcripts because it's cheaper, faster, more efficient to look at the text transcripts rather than to process the audio or the video to get to any of these solutions that we hope to achieve. So those are our dreams for the future. And I would like to know what yours are, but realistic ones, please. So if you could tell me what is a realistic improvement to the accessibility of learning materials that you see coming up with helped by AI in the next couple of years.
Okay, I've popped it up as a poll there. It should be hopefully able to use, but you can always use the chat as well if you'd rather. Like what's amazing is we've seen in the last 2 to 3 years so many changes. Although 2 to 3 years doesn't feel like a long time, it's almost like, who knows, 3 years from now what we'll be talking about, what products will be around.
That's true. We can kind of anticipate, and we've seen a lot of very similar, companies or solutions pop up. So now it's kind of survival of the fittest and the best. So we can kind of anticipate some things, but yeah, indeed, how can we possibly anticipate, what will happen in terms of AI 3 years from now when we've just lived through something like COVID? So it's like there's so much unpredictable stuff that can happen that it is indeed hard to predict, but we can still, dream our dreams.
That's good. Okay, we've got a few. I've got quite a lot of entries into the improvement questions. So I'm going to end that now, and I'll just give you. I don't know if other people can see the responses. So what I'll do is I'll just kind of shout out the the kind of main things that are popping up here. See, it'd be interesting actually to come back and revisit this.
Yeah.
Years from now and see what happened. So like, oh, we're way above. Yeah, so we've got folks would like better automated alt text based on meaning, not image identification description. Oh, that's the holy grail. Ability to train to your individual needs, so greater personalization, checking slides for accessibility, seamless linking between accessibility tools and native media, so adjustments don't need to be made. Terminology banks that would help educators to contribute subject expertise and allow for institution-specific terms to be recognised more consistently. Oh dear. Give AI the challenge to get colleagues to make basic documents accessible. I hope AI can help with that. It's good we still go back to the basics. Chat engagement with reviewing learning materials, fewer errors, more, PDF, automation. Yeah, loads of stuff here. What we can do is collect all this together.
Yeah, give us some.
There's a lot about, actually just even checking for kind of basics, because that's still, it's still something that comes back as the lot of basic errors are the ones that kind of persist the most. Yep. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see, because sometimes we focus on the kind of the more complex, or that's what we're all interested in, but a lot of the time it's just the basic stuff that
the simple solutions, which
wrong at scale.
So. Or that we need to do at high volumes, and that's kind of what AI is really good for. I also saw an interesting question in chat about using RAG framework. So that's retrieval augmented generation. So basically the large language model would incorporate this knowledge base that you give it to improve accuracy. And this was kind of that terminology list that I was referencing. So this is why we didn't proceed with the neural contextual biasing, because it required that we build this terminology list, which is a massive endeavor. And that's something that came up in the poll just now as well. If you could have an index of terms, a dictionary that, you know, teachers could use. So this is something we're currently looking at, and it is a task and a half, I have to say. So we're trying to extract non-common terms from transcripts at the moment, but it can do that from just any type of text document as well. So from a lecture PDF or something like that. So it extracts the words that it considers to be not common language, so specialist terms. And you know, there's a threshold there, you know, what is just a fancy word and what's actually a word that is specific to this subject area. And then you need humans to look over them and actually pick out the words that are relevant and are not just, you know, some overly complex words. It's a big task to create these terminology lists, but they will be accurate to your institution. So if you can afford to put in the work to do that, I think it would be great. However, you know, we've seen such quick developments in large language models. You know, by the time you put in all this work, a new update to GPT might come up that, you know, basically does the same work. And we have seen that with the latest version. So it's a good exercise, I think. We're doing it at the moment because we do want to improve the ASR provision. So we're trying to give it these dictionaries that are specific to subjects, to certain subjects. So that was a really interesting point in chat there, yeah. And someone saying that their teaching staff is encouraged to create glossaries. So is ours, but it is a task. So I think not all of them do. So yeah, again, it goes back to asking colleagues to create simple text documents, I believe. But you know, I joke about this, but it is a very time-intensive endeavor. So you know, it's obvious why people don't have the time to do that when they have you know, teaching, for example, to do. Right, so I'll just skip to that last slide. It doesn't mean I don't want to talk to you anymore.
No, you're right, because we've just got a few minutes, left. Actually, I'll just pick up on, there was a question, because obviously, as always, you know, like in the, you know, the sort of, as you mentioned earlier, kind of real world context and things, you know, financing, funding, services and things is always, how to balance the books is on people's minds. And I noticed you said earlier on, although you guys do employ a lot of student interns, they are paid as, you know, it's what you say, national living wage. So that's that kind of higher rate. Someone, I think it was Mike was asking in the chat, did you look at how that compared with using like an external service? You know, just, I suppose, anything you can say about that would be interesting.
Yes, we did look at that. That's a really good point, good question. This was before I joined the team, but the people who were working on it before me were looking at an external service, and you know, they looked at the cost of that, which was lower, but they had concerns surrounding ethics, and there was not a lot of transparency from the suppliers they looked at. So, you know, they weren't sure where these captioners were located, or how much of the income they were actually getting, you know, along with other considerations. So they thought this would be a good opportunity, you know, to offer our students some employment. And, you know, they don't just sit there and kind of work away. They get quite a lot out of the captioning. Sometimes it does get quite boring and repetitive, but you know, we've had people who've told us that they've had a career perspective change because of captioning certain courses. Others, you know, have learned quite a lot from subjects that they never would have considered because they were so far away from their own interests. And they all feel like they're doing something that matters to help, you know, their fellow students with accessibility needs, or just to improve this service provision. So overall, I think it's a very positive experience for them. And it's definitely for us to have them around and hear all of their perspectives and hear their observations and all of their ideas. So it's a net positive, maybe not financially necessarily, but overall, yeah.
Okay, really interesting. I think it's so interesting to hear. There's, as we found today in the chat as well, quite diverse approaches across the sector. And so it's really interesting to find out what people are doing, and then compare to our own experiences, and just open up the idea of what's possible. And we've got some questions about how students are paid and things. I don't know. I'll let you answer that.
So we're part of the information services department, which serves all 3 colleges. So that would be a central budget. If individual schools have budget for this, they're welcome to hire their own captioners and do their work internally. But we don't oversee that. So, you know, if you have budget, go for it.
Well, now we're bang on time. That's 1:30. So thank you so much. That was really, really fascinating. I think it was such interesting, and thank you for being so open and sharing what you're doing. It's so valuable. Just a quickie to say to folks, I've popped a link in the chat if you're interested in other aspects of access for deaf students. We've got actually also connected with Edinburgh. This was a workshop that was run at Edinburgh University a few months ago, and there was requests for it to be run in London, so jisc is going to host it, and it's more about using assistive technology for improving access to sound, but lots of hands-on. And we've got Phonak coming in, where they're sending humongous amounts of equipment to the jisc office that's going to be received and all get set up. So it's a real, we do most of our things online, but this thing it's so you can get hands-on with things. So please do come along to that if you can. That's great. Thank you so much, everybody, and we'll see you next month, where we've got another groovy session lined up for you. Thanks again, Nelly, and to everybody who participated.
Thank you, and looking forward to the next one. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
So good. I've just been engrossed for like an hour. I didn't realize the time. I was like, fantastic.
That was really interesting. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your